inside this frame. I am a religious fundamentalist. I know, that's a dangerous way to start a talk. But I decided it's best to be upfront, get everything out in the open, because after all, we are a society that thrives on labels. We put labels on other people. We put them on ourselves. We do it because we think it's going to make our lives easier. We won't have to make the effort of actually getting to know people, of actually understanding where people are coming from. Oh, you're one of those. Oh, you're one of them. I don't need to care what you think, unless you're one of mine. Now, it should be obvious is that when we put labels on people, we don't know who they are, and we don't understand where they're coming from. But more fundamentally, labels prevent us from knowing who we are, from understanding where we are coming from. King Solomon, extolled for his extraordinary wisdom, taught us that iron sharpens iron, and one person sharpens the mind of another. It's only by engaging people who think differently from us that we're able to sharpen our thinking skills, that we're able to see our point of view from the point of view of others, that we're able to hone in on the essence of our beliefs. Have you ever asked yourself, where did I get my beliefs? Where do my values come from? Did I choose them, or did they choose me? As a society, shouldn't we be asking these questions collectively? Where did we get our beliefs? Where do our values come from? Did we choose them, or did they choose us? That can be scary. Maybe that's why we're obsessed with labels. We hide behind our labels so we don't have to engage people. And that's why we don't know who they are. And that's why we don't know who we are. And that's not likely to change unless we make a conscious decision to reframe our conversations. I first began entertaining these ideas over 30 years ago. Let me take you back in time. Picture me not as I look now, but as a senior at the University of California. More hair, less beard, 40 pounds lighter, and always with a book of English literature in my hand. What I loved about the study of English was the drama of stories unfolding, the texture of words used to evoke emotion, but most of all, the opportunity to have my mind opened by the discovery of new ideas and new ways of looking at the world. There's just one problem being an English major, and that's the perennial question that haunts so many college seniors. What are you going to do when you graduate? So when I graduated, I did the only thing that seemed to make any kind of reasonable sense. I put on a backpack and went hitchhiking across the United States. Now, you might be one of those people who thinks of a hitchhiker and imagines someone who wants a free ride, but that's not really true. You see, when you're a hitchhiker, when you climb into the front seat of a car or a truck, you feel relieved. You feel grateful. You feel indebted to the one person who was willing to stop and give you a ride. And the way you pay off that debt is by simply recognizing what many drivers want from a hitchhiker: someone to listen. You familiar with the strangers on a train principle? There is no safer environment in the world for self-disclosure than the front seat of a car with a driver and a hitchhiker who have zero expectation that they're ever going to see each other again. More than once, drivers confessed to me that the stories they were sharing with me they had never told to their wives, their parents, their children, or their best friends. For my part, I recognized that it wasn't my place to respond or reply or rebut or tell my story. It was my place to listen, because the truth was, they weren't really talking to me. They were talking to themselves. They just needed me to be there to make them feel comfortable doing it. And because I wasn't occupying my mind with what I was going to say, I listened more carefully. I got to know them better. And in the process, I got to know myself better as well. And that would pay off because, as Robert Frost tells us, way leads on to way. And 1 year later, I found myself in the land of Israel, where, through an unlikely series of events, I ended up in a rabbinic college. Now, if you don't know what that is, neither did I. It's a seminary for the advanced study of Jewish law and ethics, and for me it was a whole new world. I'd grown up with no knowledge whatsoever of my heritage, my culture. I only knew that I was Jewish. I'll never forget my first day there. I was led into a classroom for a lecture on Jewish philosophy. Apparently it was a popular class because the whole room filled up around me. The instructor walked in, everyone stood up, and I looked for a way out. Because this instructor, he wasn't just a rabbi, he was Hasidic. And if you're not sure what that means, picture this: a long black coat and a big black hat and a scraggly beard and side locks and glasses with Coke bottle lenses, and I just knew what was coming. You better listen to me or you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. I couldn't listen to this. I had to get out. But I couldn't. You see, I'd taken a seat in the far back corner of the room, a room that was now so tightly packed I would have had to literally climb over a dozen people and make a spectacle of myself to get out. It wasn't going to happen. I was trapped in a room with a religious fundamentalist. Then he started to talk. He had an accent, but it wasn't Yiddish, it was New England. And he was so articulate and so eloquent and so knowledgeable and so rational. I couldn't reconcile the appearance of someone who looked like an anachronism from 19th century Europe with someone who sounded as if he could have been a professor of philosophy at Johns Hopkins University, which later I found out he was. At the end of that class, I had to make a choice. Was I going to reject everything he said because I didn't like the way he looked? Or was I going to engage him because of the substance and the content of his arguments? Well, I came back the next day, and the next, and the day after that, and together with a couple of other fellows, peppered him with questions and arguments and challenges and objections until, after 2 months, he'd answered all my questions. He'd refuted all my arguments. He'd responded to all my challenges and objections. There I was. I'd finished college. I'd been around the world 1.5 times. I was 24 years old, and I had life all figured out. Or so I thought. And now I had to make another choice. Was I going to simply walk away because I didn't like the way the conclusions to which he led me made me feel? Or was I going to completely change my entire view of the world and of myself? Much later, with the wisdom of hindsight, it occurred to me that my mind had been prepared for this moment since much earlier. Let me take you back in time once more and picture me this time not as a senior in college, but as a senior in high school. One morning I was chatting with a classmate, not a particularly close friend, but I still remember his name, Bob Gordon, even though I'm sure he's forgotten me. And in the course of our conversation, for some reason, I felt compelled to tell Bob Gordon that I was an atheist. Bob Gordon looked at me and he said, "Why?" What do you mean, why? And listen to what he said, a high school senior. He said, "It makes no more sense not to believe in God than it makes to believe in God. You can't prove either one. Why do you want to believe in something you can't prove?" And right there, on the spot, I did something completely out of character. I admitted he was right. And immediately, I changed my label. I stopped calling myself an atheist. I started calling myself an agnostic. And that was the label I kept for the next 6 years until I met a Hasidic rabbi, someone I never would have believed could have anything to tell me or teach me, who convinced me for the second time in my life to reconsider my label. Open-mindedness does not mean accepting every belief as valid. Open-mindedness means accepting the possibility that truth may lie in unexpected places, and accepting the possibility that my perception of truth may not be infallible. And oddly enough, that acceptance makes us more, not less, secure in our own beliefs. Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, one of the most influential Jewish thinkers of the last century, said, "All extremism and fanaticism come from a lack of security. A secure person cannot be an extremist." Why not? Because he knows not only what he believes, but why he believes it. If I can't explain why you believe what you believe, how can I be sure you're wrong? And if I can't articulate why you might reasonably disagree with me, how can I be sure I'm right? 2,000 years ago, there were two great institutions of Jewish study, the Academy of Hillel and the Academy of Shammai. And they had vastly different approaches to Jewish philosophy and Jewish law. History records that when they debated in the study hall, they argued with such passion, it was as if they fought with swords and spears. And yet, when they left the study hall, they were fast friends. They got on famously. They married their sons and daughters to each other. How open-minded is that? By making the effort to listen and understand where the other school was coming from, each school recognized the ethical integrity and morality of the other. And even though they never did come to a meeting of minds, they were able to see past their labels, to work together in pursuit of common purpose and in pursuit of higher truth. This is a paradigm of ethical communication. And we don't have to be rabbis or scholars to achieve it. We have to start by establishing credibility. We do that when we articulate our point of view so that others can understand where we're coming from, even if they haven't already bought into our beliefs. We have to establish trust. And we do that by re-articulating what others say to us so that they know that we've heard them and we understand where they are coming from. Then we have to demonstrate integrity. That means we have to acknowledge truth wherever we find it, even if it's a truth we don't like, even if it's a truth we don't want to hear. Then we have to demonstrate consistency. We can't condemn people on the other side for their behavior and then give people on our side a pass when they do exactly the same thing. Finally, we have to have a little humility. That means we have to be willing to continuously revisit our beliefs so we never forget why we believe them, so that our principles never devolve into dogma. With that in mind, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you, Bob Gordon, wherever you are. If not for you, who knows where I'd be today. And thank you to all those drivers who not only picked me up, but who gave me the opportunity to learn how to listen. And thank you to all the students who were in the rabbi's class that morning for making it impossible for me to escape, so that I had to stay and listen to what he had to say. And to you here today, may I leave you with one request. Take a good, honest look at what you believe and ask yourself, where did you get your beliefs? Where do your values come from? Did you choose them, or did they choose you? Did you merely absorb them from your parents and your teachers and your peers and the news media and the entertainment industry? Or did you reason your way to them? Because only if you did will you be secure enough and open-minded enough to engage people with different labels. And only then will we together be able to communicate ethically, be able to find common ground, and seek solutions to our common problems, of which we have so many. Please remember that, and when you do, please remember where you heard it. From a religious fundamentalist.